Okay, if you could get out the handout called the one that I asked you to download, 4 Stages of Advertising. Okay, this is the handout. Okay, now, this is most probably not going to, well, actually shouldn't make any sense to you right now. And my job today is, by the end of the class today, is for this table to make sense to you and to make perfect sense to you. Okay, so if you don't understand it right now, if you got it, you don't understand, that's okay. We're going to go through it, and I'm going to give you a number of different examples of how it operates. So what we did was, we've actually done, this is what we, in the last class, we kind of looked at, actually the top, this is a historical table. It reads from left to right. So it starts off about the 1880s, comes through to about 1990. So it's a 100-year period, from about 1880 to, as I said, to 1990. So we looked at that first part already, the media for advertising. We looked at how newspapers, magazines, and then radio is added to it, and then television is added to the advertising media, to the media mix that advertising has to deal with. Okay, at the same time, we looked at the next part, so the next line on the handout, which is marketing strategy, which is, that's another word for, another way of referring to how advertisers thought about the audience. We looked at the different ways that advertisers thought about the audience. They talked about them, looked at them as rational and then non-rational, and then there was a stage of motivational research, and then the stage of market segmentation. And we saw how those were actually somehow connected, were roughly connected to the development of new kinds of media. And so what we're going to try and figure out today, or what we'll look at today, is, are there distinct ways you can identify advertising from those periods? That is, do those changes in media, do those changes in the way in which advertisers thought about the audience, do they manifest themselves into the form and the content of advertising? Hopefully we'll see that today. In that 100-year period from 1880 to 1890 to 1900, that we can actually identify 4 distinct stages in the development of advertising. And you're going to get very familiar with this. The 4 stages also correspond to other things. So it normally comes down to 4 different formats or 4 different stages of things. And what we're going to look at to examine that, to see if we can see in advertising, see in ads, the things that we've been talking about. What we're going to look at is we're going to examine magazine ads. Okay, not because that's the only thing that's going on. As you see, I mean, there's radio, there's television introduced into this. But magazine ads stretch across that 100-year period. And so they're constant across it. And in fact, the argument that we've been making is that even though we're not going to look at radio ads, that advertisers' experience with radio impacts the way they think about advertising, even in magazines. Because the same people that are interacting with radio, the same people that are making TV ads, are also making magazine ads. And the influences that come from radio and from television should, if our analysis is valid, we should see that influence also in magazines, because the same people with the same understanding who are making magazine messages, radio messages, television messages, and nowadays, web messages. So that's why, so magazines are going to be the example we're going to look at, because it stretches across the entire time we're going to be examining. And also, I want you to keep in mind, we're going to be looking at a lot of ads today. We're going to be looking at over like 100 ads today to try and figure this out. And I want you to keep in mind, even though we're going to talk about stages, that is very, very rough. There is, I mean, stages are, I mean, unfortunately, history doesn't carve itself out in that very, very neat way. So what we're going to look at are tendencies. We're going to look at what is dominant in any period. And just because we go from one stage of advertising to the other, it doesn't mean that first stage is left behind. In fact, I want you to think about this as the stages go on top of each other. The stages they're actually additive, they're cumulative. So what appears in the first stage actually never goes away. What appears in the first stage remains there, and there are things that are added to it. So let's see what those different stages are. Okay, the first one. So we're essentially going to fill out this. We're going to fill out this table. Okay, if you don't have, I assume many of you actually don't have copies of this, but you'll need to print it out from the website, and should make perfect sense. But you don't particularly need it. Everything that we're going to, everything that's on the table is going to be on that handout as well, on that printed handout. So the question is, what is happening to advertising strategy as we're looking at changes in media, changes in marketing strategy? Well, the first stage is what we can call the stage of product of utility. And this lasts from the period, and these are rough periods, lasts from around the 1890s to the 1910s. Okay, and in this period, the major focus, actually we've seen some of this already, the major focus is on products themselves, their qualities, their price, their use, what they do. Remember, the assumption is that the audience is rational. And if the audience is rational, then they will need to be convinced in a rational way. So there's lots of text, there's lots of writing in these ads, lots of what's called reason why advertising. Lots of here's why the product is good. And most of that reason why is based on the qualities of the product itself. And we'll see in the second phase how that's different. So those are the elements. Those are the elements of ads. It's products, their qualities, and their usefulness. And then the themes in ads. And we'll do this for each of those stages. So there's the elements of the ads, and then there's the themes of the ads. The themes are quality, usefulness, descriptiveness. Okay, let's look at some of the ads from this first stage. This is from about 1892. You can see, I mean, it's still an early time, still limited to what newspapers can offer, and so you still got the columns there, lots of writing, lots of text. And in fact, you've got, how many? 30 or so ads on one page. And actually, they're pretty, I mean, there's a few illustrations here or there, but they pretty much look like classified ads. Okay, these are 4 ads from around a little bit later. Even though we're now starting to use, even though there is now, these are in magazines, we're starting to see the use of some kind of color, there's some kind of tone coming in. There's more illustrations. The argument is still a rational argument. What's stressed are, pear line, that's on the bottom left, pear line, it's a soap, makes washing safe. Makes washing easy, safe too. And so even though it shows someone using the product, it's stressing how good the product is. This is Regal. You actually, these are old ads, and it's tough to reproduce them somehow. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off all the lights to see if we can get a little bit better. Well, most of the lights anyway. Okay, this is an ad for shoes. Regal shoes. Why should you buy shoes? Well, here's what women say about how well made they are and how long they last. Again, lots of text, lots of explaining the qualities of the product. There's another one for shoes. Why shoes? Well, because it's made of something called neolin, and the neolin makes shoes last. And again, you can see just the assumption is, there is an assumption when you're using this much text. The assumption is you got to convince someone in a rational way. People aren't just going to go out and just because you put the picture of the product out there, they're not just going to go out and buy it. Unlike today. I mean, that's different. I mean, many of these strategies remain the same, but we just have different forms in how they're presented. So again, the assumption is people they're resistive. They don't want to part with their money that quickly. You've got to convince them. They're rational. Therefore, you've got to give them lots of information as to why they should buy this product. This is for lard. Again, lots of description. And you'll notice there are some people in some of these ads, but there's not a lot of, right now, I mean, right now there's not a lot of ads, there's not a lot of representations of people, of persons in ads. The focus actually is on the product and on the glories and the wonder of the product. So that's the way real lard is advertised. This is the way baby food is advertised. Actually, Nestle's been doing this for a long time, right? China, essentially. This actually says, don't wait too long before you wean the baby. If you do, the little one is likely to be weak and anemic. Mother's milk is, of course, the best food for young babies, but the time comes when it isn't sufficient for the fast-growing body. Doctors say this is where the baby is about 6 months old. So this is Nestle's trying to say, we know you could do breastfeeding, but no, it's actually, after about 6 months, doctors say that it's actually going to be harmful to your baby. Of course, Nestle's has been involved in this with tragic consequences. Nestle's did the same kind of marketing in Africa for baby formula, and has led to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of babies when they convinced mothers to switch from breastfeeding, which people have been doing for centuries in Africa, have been perfectly safe, and switching to this constructed formula, which actually, when they made the switch and the conditions weren't right, the sanitation wasn't enough for the formula to be mixed properly, in fact led to the deaths, as I said, of hundreds of thousands of babies. But Nestle's, as I said, has been doing this. You can see this is an early, we know that you could do it without buying this product, but we don't make any money, so don't do it by buying this product. Take something that is natural and make it something that is mediated. This is biscuits. Again, picture of the biscuit, and then lots of information about why you should be buying it. Vaseline. Okay, one thing you can do a kind of thought experiment. Just think to yourself now. I mean, as you look through magazines, today, if you whatever magazine, whether it's People or Newsweek or Time or Glamour or whatever it is, or whatever magazine, just in one sense, just think about how much text there is in ads today, or how much there isn't actually, and how much text there is in these ones. Here's a car ad. Economy of Ford service. And so he's trying to say, why should you buy Ford? Well, because the service is going to be very economical. And therefore, it's just trying to convince you through those rational arguments, through that rational mode, that you should buy Ford. This is actually getting near the end of this period. This is around 1919 or so. And actually starts, you can see there's more. This is why does it look like this? Well, it looks like this because magazines have made full color pages, something that's possible. And so advertisers now start to think about, okay, how can we use illustrations? How can we use color? But one of the things that's interesting about this is, even though there's more, the picture takes up more of the overall space, it's still a very rational argument. The reason for using Kellogg's toasted cornflakes is because of the wrapping, because it's kept fresh. So there's nothing that says you can only make rational arguments only in text. You can actually make rational arguments using all kinds of different formats. You can construct a rational argument using nothing but pictures if you wanted to. So just the existence of text or the existence of pictures is not enough to say that this is a rational reason why advertising. You've actually got to look at the form and the content of it. Okay, here is a beer ad. O'Keeffe's. And they say, even the staunchest, this is what the text says, this is around the time of Prohibition as well. It says, even the staunchest advocates of temperance do not object to such real tonic beverages as O'Keeffe's. For O'Keeffe's cannot possibly be harmful either to old or young. Okay. Think about how beer is sold these days. There's not a lot about health within that. Okay, don't live with germs. Again, here's how you can fumigate with insects. I mean, lots of explanations, lots of reasons why. And the only thing you can, when you look at this, right, you have to say, well, what is the assumption that the people who wrote this had of the audience? Well, the assumption is that people aren't idiots, and that in fact people want information, and that without rational information they will not do what you want them to do, which is in fact to buy the product. And so just from the form you can say you can figure out what the maker of a message thinks about the audience based on just how they're addressing the audience. Here's another one. If your brakes grab or slip, and then lots of text, lots of explanation for why the product is going to be able to do the job. Now, the next one is actually an interesting ad. This is kind of transitioning into the next period. And I said none of these stages are hard and fast. And in fact, it's very interesting sometimes to look at those places, look at those margins, look at those transitional times when we're going from one stage to another. This is around 1917. Again, this is for a car. There's more pictures. There's only the text is only half of it now. Again, but what's being stressed is the price. What's being stressed is the price. And it's an interesting, as I said, transitional mode. Okay, that's stage number one. Okay, stage number one, product utility. To that, around the 1920s, is added a second stage. And the second stage is the stage of what we call product symbols. And this goes from, as I said, around the 1890s to about the 1940s. Yeah.
With each additional introduction of some kind of new element or theme, are they also still incorporated in the other earlier, media?
The question is, with each introduction of new elements and new themes, are they integrated into the previous? Not ads. I mean, that's one of the interesting. They are added as another format. Not that you can't. You actually, as we'll see a little bit later on, you actually can start to mix different elements in the same ad. But as you do that, the danger is you will confuse people. So in general, no. In general, it is possible, and we see later on that happens. But in general, right now, let's try and just figure out how the stages are different from each other. And then actually later on we can see how they start to mix in together. Okay? So the second one is the stage of product utility. Here, there is now advanced photography is making the product more three-dimensional. So we're actually we have the development of photography that can be used in advertising. And in this stage, the product comes to be seen as a symbol. In this stage, it's not just what it does. Okay, that's stage number one. That's utility. We talk about product utility, what it does. Now it is also what it means. And now the product comes to stand for something. Because, if it comes to stand for something, it means then that someone else is watching. If it comes to stand for something, it means that it is now a form of communication. And now society actually becomes much more important. And in fact, in a lot of these ads, there's the impression that someone is always watching you. Someone is always assessing your consumption. Someone is always judging you. And sometimes it's actually very, very specific. But again, if the product means something, well, it has to have someone to mean something to. And therefore, now consumption is not just you and it's not just the product itself. Not just what the product does. Now, okay, when you use the product, it actually now means something. So therefore, you've got to be, when you think about what you're going to use, when you think about your relationship with the product, you also have in mind now, not just yourself and what it will do for you or what the product will do, you also have in mind now how someone else from outside will read that, how someone else will judge that, how someone else will assess it. Products now come to take on abstract qualities beyond the utility. It's not just this will clean clothes. Soap can also be about modern living. Soap can also be about freshness. Soap can also be about other things as well, which are much more abstract. They can capture, as I said, other qualities. They can capture, in this stage we see how ads or how products are presented as capturing aspects of nature. That the modern technology is so powerful that it can deliver, for example, fruit to you in the middle of winter. Now, nowadays we think nothing of, well, we'll eat the same food all year round. We'll have fruit, even though in the middle of winter we want tropical fruit in the middle of winter. Well, that wasn't always the case. When consumption is relatively local, then it's very difficult to get food in from outside. And so initially, just that notion of, you can have tropical fruits, or you can have vegetables that are relatively fresh in winter the same way you could do in summer, and that this product will capture that freshness for you. We'll see that in a while. The relation, and again, if you have to ask me which is the most interesting period to look at historically, again, we're not going to bring this right up to the present today, by the way. We're taking it up to about 1990. I want to make that clear. This is not bringing it right up to the present. And in fact, I think I actually think we actually are now in a new stage. And we'll look at that in the second part of the semester. But if you ask me what was the most interesting kind of stage to look at, what's the most interesting period to look at, I think I said this before. For me, the most interesting period is always the periods of transition. The periods when one society is being left behind and a new one is kind of being formed. Remember when we looked at that page from the Parma Gazette? And on the left-hand side was the old world, which is retail advertising. Here it is, the product is coming, the product is being delivered. And on the right-hand side of the page was the world that was just about to come, which is the world of patent medicines. And people trying to convince you in a non-rational way, trying to brand products in a way that wasn't possible on the left-hand side. That's actually when you can look at a text like that, you can actually from that see the broader movements that it is reflecting. And so for me, transitional periods are always the most interesting. And I think the second period actually is that key period of transition for a consumer society. It's when consumption is not just about what the product does. Consumption now starts to be integrated into the lives of people, starts to be integrated into the meaning system, starts to be integrated into the culture that people are constructing. And in this period, there's a very interesting relationship between text and image. It's almost as though the text, the writing, duplicates the image. It explains the image. And again, nowadays we don't have to have the image explained. Nowadays, when we see an ad, we know it's an ad, and we know what it's trying to say. We know, in fact, that it is trying to say something about the brand, something about the product. Well, in the early years, that wasn't always the case. It wasn't always the case that you could just put an image out there and trust that people would be educated enough, and when I mean educated in the reading of an image, be educated enough to be able to make sense of it the way that advertisers wanted to make sense of it. And so in the early years, or in this transitional period, advertisers are helping you. Okay, here's the image. Here's what we want to say about what it means, and just in case you don't get it, just in case there is some ambiguity around it, here is the text. Here is some writing explaining that. It's almost as though it duplicates one another. It's almost as though the consumer culture is educating consumers, is educating people, is training them to read ads properly. Emotional tone is very important in this period. We start to see emotions such as anxiety, hope, fear, envy, admiration. Those start to become more important in advertising. And if we wanted to, let's just go, the elements in ads here now. Now it is product qualities are now connected to symbolic attributes. What the product, that is a product actually means something, not just what it does. And the themes in ads are status. Because remember, now we're now not individuals with our own relationship to products and the focus on what the product does. We are now individuals in society who are consuming in a social way. And as soon as that happens, then it's about competition. Then it's about, I mean, who has status, who doesn't. Family starts to become more important here. Health. It's something called white magic. Actually, white magic is, and in the next period we'll look at something called black magic. White magic is the capture of nature. It's that, like I said, that ad that will be able to say, we are so powerful, we're going to capture nature, we're going to put it into a can, and you can have it in the middle of winter. So it's the capture, it's the capture of nature. And then social authority as well. There's lots of people in white coats and scientists and doctors, etc., trying to tell you why this product is good for you. So this actually, there's a lot of ads in here. So let's just go to it. And I want you to think about, okay, as we go through them, how is it different to what's come before? Okay, what's different about it? Okay, this is from actually not long after 1926. You can start to see that it's already become, it's much, much more abstract. It's actually about status, people in fur coats. There's more pictures, there's more illustrations, there's more color. And actually, there's actually less and less text. There is still some there. It's another one. Ideals of beauty. Ideals of beauty. Okay, physical perfection, and then you can get that schoolgirl complexion. But again, it's brought back to this notion of old-time beauty, which is reflected through the statue there. And again, if you can, it says, if you wish to gain them, follow nature's laws, and above all, this natural rule in skincare, which has proved its effectiveness to the world. Now, if this was a modern ad, you wouldn't need the bottom half of the page. You actually would just get it from the top part. We now know precisely how to read an ad in that way. But right now, it's doing that explaining. And still that kind of, this is not quite a modern ad yet. The representations of people are not quite concrete yet. They're still relatively abstract. This is a early Revlon ad. Okay, both of her insist on Revlon nail enamel and lipstick. This is both the housewife and the other woman that the women want to be. But again, relatively abstract. The image is there. Lots of text that tells you something about the product. Okay, the quest for beauty goes on. This notion that products should be connected to beauty, that wasn't a concept that existed in the first phase. In the first phase, were products beautiful? Would they make you? Oh, well, what did the product do? How utilitarian was it? Well, now it's not only about what a product does; it's also about other things also. And beauty, again, remember, is a social concept. When we say beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, there also always is a beholder. There's always someone who is making that judgment around beauty. Okay, it says, you just know she wears them. This is for silk hosiery. But again, the person being presented is relatively abstract. She's actually meant to be kind of an upper class person, has some status. Let's look at some car ads. Okay, for some reason, whenever this is supposed to be the future, whenever it's the future, somehow buildings are always round. I don't know why, but the future is always, buildings are always round. And so this is supposed to be in the future. It's a modern car, people coming out with, fur coats and etc. Okay, your car is not just what gets you from A to B. Your car, in fact, is a consumption, is an accessory of you that is being judged. The car actually means something. The car actually means something. And this is another. This is for another Ford ad. This one actually makes it most explicit. This is the deluxe Ford V8. Okay, you got to. This is what is Ford connected to? Well, there's a doorman there. So it's actually not just normal people, that's actually high-class people. And then look at the people looking out the windows. Right? That's, when I say someone is always watching you, someone is always assessing you. In this period, it's very direct. In this period, actually, the person who's watching you actually sometimes in the very frame itself, and it's made very, very explicit. Made very explicit. If someone is always watching you well, then it's about making sure you consume in the right way. This is Studebaker. Again, many of these ads at this time were about the car standing in front of the house or the apartment, people coming out, and other people watching. It was that moment of when you get into the car, that's the moment when the car means something. Again, lots of text still, right? Lots of text, lots of explanation of what the image is going to mean. Actually, this is from a little bit later in the period. Actually, it says the E is gone. It's elegant is the word. Okay, whereas in the first phase, it was utility, it was cheap service, it was cost. Well, by this time, it is now, the Soto is now, elegance is the word. Elegance. So we're now talking about style, we're talking about beauty, we're talking about things that are beyond just the utility of the product. The family also is very important in this period. Here's another car ad. This is one of my favorite ads. I love the dog. The dog is there. Okay, where are we going next? Where are we going when we're going on our holiday? Where are we going to go now? But again, this is, and actually, of course, everyone dresses up in coats and ties, etc., when you're just about to plan the family vacation. But again, this is status. This is my 1938. Oldsmobile for 1938. Again, lots of images of family, how consumption, how the product is connected to family. Okay, none of this would have existed in that first period. Right? What we had in the first period was about, it was if you had family, okay, here's your baby, and it's going to die unless you buy Nestle's. Okay, that was a very utilitarian thing. It's a very direct. Right now, it's actually much more abstract. Much more abstract. This is cake flour, right? It's easy, father, when you use Swan's dozen. Again, the scenes of domesticity, the scenes of family life. Actually, this is a similar one to the baby one, except it's, okay, Junior was so frail, I almost cried. So what's going to make him less frail? Well, here is something that will make him less frail. Here's an early Kodak ad. Okay, this is actually getting now, this actually wouldn't be, if the black and white will make it something strange, but I mean, this could almost be a modern ad. That is, Kodak is going to capture this moment for you. It's not just that, why Kodak, because the picture is going to be really clear and accurate, etc., but now actually the camera and the film is going to be able to capture something and hold it forever. Like this tender moment between grandfather and grandchild. And this is for Baker's Cocoa, again connected to what families are doing. Shredded wheat, school days are shredded wheat days, connected to family life. And then there's also a very dark undercurrent to this world as well. Okay, there is the world of anxiety. The word that Carol never hears is darling. And it says, no woman who offends with underarm odor can ever win out with men. And I want to make. We have ads that say exactly the same thing in the contemporary period. Just don't say it explicitly. Actually, some of them still do, but perhaps not as explicit as this. How many good night kisses does a good wife miss? There's often a wife who thinks she's dainty, lets underarm odor spoil her charm. And this one, again, one of my favorites. It's the talking underwear. Actually, the fruit of the loom people have been around for a while. The underwear has been talking for quite a while to people. So it says, I'm so lonely. And then it says, Betty is pretty, clever, but doesn't have many friends. Let's listen in. And then her underwear is talking. It says, perspiration odor, undie odor, etc. And that's why she doesn't have a lot of friends, because her underwear literally stinks. I said the underwear keeps talking throughout the century. Okay, what do men think when they look at you? Ask it very explicitly, right? Not just an implied. When men look at you, what are they thinking? And the way the question is phrased, why they talk. Actually, I don't even know what this says. I think this is about complexion. Are they assessing your complexion? And if they are, well, here's another one. Broken illusions can never be mended. And actually, what this is about, a faded shoulder ribbon. That's what he's looking at. You may not look as though that's where he's looking, but that's where he's looking at her faded shoulder ribbon. It says, a faded shoulder ribbon can again break charm spell. Okay, again, you're now being, they're now saying, you thought consumption was private. Well, no, it's not. Now consumption is social, and here's how we're going to teach you it's social. So you better think about your consumption. You better think about how you're going to be assessed. Okay, men are not, this is at the end of this period, men are not immune from this. This actually is an ad during the war, during the Second World War, near the end of this period. It says, do you wonder who's kissing her now? And it's about when you get back from the front lines, is your breath going to, whatever it is, Colgate, is your breath going to be enough for her to, for you to win her back? Again, anxiety, fear. I hate gossips, but have you noticed her teeth? Again, some people, they're in the background, they're whispering, they're looking at you, they're assessing, they're surveilling you. After exercise, I simply had to keep away. Well, now Lifebuoy actually makes it possible for you not to keep away, and you can actually go and actually talk to people and speak to people. It says at the top, poor Jane, she's only 30, but she looks like 40, and she acts like 50. Why? Because vitamin starvation takes all the joy out of her life. This is how you can get it back. For men, okay, from lip to lip, the story flashes. This is someone has got a bad shave. And from lip to lip, the story flashes about how someone didn't have a good shave. Okay, let's go on. That's, again, there's lots of, that's fear, that's anxiety, that's, stress around personal relations, and how the product actually can intervene within that. This is actually what I mean by what I call kind of white magic. Okay, summer is like dipping your spoon in sunshine. And we have to realize, the idea of canning, of being able to put things in cans and then put them away and then take them out 6 months later and still being able to, still being relatively fresh, right? That wasn't always around. That is an invention of the 1920s and 1930s. And the way they're selling it, again, is that notion. This product will be able to capture. You can capture summer. You can capture summer. Here's another one. Summer for sale in cans. Okay, the capture of, this is what, we're looking at, what's called white magic. White magic is supposed to be kind of, innocent magic. It's kind of capturing the forces of nature. This is going to be contrast with something with what we call black magic, which is the control of other people, which is the control of or being able to allure other people. And it can capture summer, but actually the products can now also mean, can actually mean a place. It can actually come to stand for, this is now, this is the same spaghetti as they have in Italy. So you're now capturing, it's not only the spaghetti sounds good, not only will taste good, it's the same, it's now Italian, it's got that authenticity to it. Also, lots of examples of status, of how upper class people are held in esteem. This is for cream of wheat, so 6 young persons of importance. I don't recognize most of them, but there's John Aspinwall Roosevelt, Elizabeth Stuyvesant. So these are obviously people, these are status people in that society at that time, and these are their children. And what's good for the children of those with status is cream of wheat. I actually don't even, I think she's selling perfume, the Mariness of Milford Haven. Okay, remember, now consumption is now social. And so, when it's social, then it's, well, what do different people mean? And the whole idea of class starts to come into it. And who's high and who's low. And what do you want to be connected to? That's Mariness of Milford Haven. This is Mrs. Reginald Vanderbilt doing the same thing. Here's Coke. Again, this is Coke connected to status. What's the meaning of this? Well, actually, these are, they're not just kind of everyday people. We'll see actually how that notion of Coke being for everyday people actually switches. I mean, we transform into that. But at some point, actually, Coke means status. And here they are. They're in their car at the beach, and we know that they're status because they have, in fact, a driver at the back with the hat. And so these are people who have a chauffeur. Actually, if you have a car like that at this point, and even the way they're dressed. So again, it's those abstract notions of status that are connected to this.
Is there any prohibition?
Prohibition? Oh, I mean, against alcohol?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not. I think I think prohibition ends around about the 1930s. I think. So I don't think you'll see a lot of. There won't be a lot of alcohol ads during this time, which I haven't been able to show you any because of that. And these are just some random ones. There are no particular themes around this. Again, this is gain a day. This is, you can now do your washing and do other things in a much more efficient manner, so you can then go and socialize with people. And again, only people of distinction have access to this kind of stuff. Here's lady, you can't see it, but there's grease in those clothes. Okay, sometimes the assessment is very direct. Right? There's the accusing hand. You can't see it, but there is, and you better not let grease remain in those clothes. You're never too early to start thinking about status. Such a lucky little lady, and why she's lucky? Because she's got this little sterling cup, and all her friends are jealous about the cup that she has. Okay, so there's another car ad. Now, actually, it's also about, this is a transitional ad. This is getting into the next period. Now, it's actually not only about the car. The car is about being cheap. It's about being efficient, etc. Well, as we saw earlier, the car is also about what it means. It means modernity, means being status, means being upper class. Well, now it's also actually, the car can also give you a thrill. It will actually, it can change your feelings. It can have a direct actually impact upon you. As I said, this actually is, even though this is in the second period, this actually is an ad that would not be out of place in the third period, that we'll come to in a second. Okay, lots of explanation. There's lots of use of visual metaphors. Here they're trying to explain something about cycloethyl, and they're going, how do you explain, like this, so you've got these new products, how do you explain them? Well, you explain them by using traditional images. And so it's like, the cycloethyl is like the wedding of Beauty and the Beast, or Beauty or civilization and the barbarian together. Or they took something like, everyone knows how to make macaroni and cheese. Well, the same way that cheese makes macaroni better, so ethyl fluid makes gasoline better. Again, trying to explain new products in old ways. These are motor oil. Red Indian motor oil is not only, it's about endurance and how do you communicate endurance? Well, in the culture of that time, that is what native people stood for. They stood for nature, they stood for barbarism, they stood for strength. Because then there's always, when we talk about native peoples, we talk about the way African Americans have been represented. There's always a dual notion. On the one hand, there's contempt. At the same time, there's fear. Those are always, and you can use both of those. You can use both the contempt and the fear at different times about that, and because the fear has meaning. The fear is based upon who are these people, what qualities do they have. There's another one. Well, this actually is lots of people in white coats, scientific authority, etc. As I said, for me, this second period, the second period for me, as I said, is I think one of the most interesting. Because you can see the development, the development of a consumer culture from one which was only about products, and now it's actually about the relationship of people, about products and things. The third stage is a stage of personalization. Okay, the stage of personalization, which lasts from around the 1950s to the 1960s. Okay, in this period now, and now we can actually start to recognize ads. I mean, we would recognize ads in this period that look like modern ads. The education of the consumer is more complete now. There's less text explaining the image. And also we now start to get the representation of ideal types. So we actually now start to see the representation of models, professional models, of fashion models. And these people, the ideal types are presented as, there is not so much now before and after. There's not so much fear. There is still some of that, but it's presumed that everyone is really scared about what people are thinking about their consumption. But you've now educated people enough, and now it's about the solution to it. And so models are used as, okay, here is what you could look like. Here is the fantasized completion of the self. What we can actually call a mirror ad. So the ad appears as a mirror, that you look into the mirror and you see yourself transformed. Here is how the product can transform you. And really, here it's about, in this period, it's really about, remember this is a period of motivational research, where there is lots of research being done in the laboratory trying to find out what it is that motivates people. It's really a movement kind of internal to people. It's movement into, whereas the second period was about actually external, it's how you're going to be viewed by society. In this third period, that becomes much more directly about the relationship of people with products. It's not so much what products mean, it is now what the product can do for you directly. What the product can do for you directly. And you actually start to have almost intimate relationships with products. They're not just embodiments of abstract things, in fact they become very concrete, and in fact you now your identity can be transformed. Your identity can be transformed by your consumption of the product. The elements in ads are, it's the product are now connected with what we call the personal prototype. Or I mean, prototype, the ideal type. The ideal, it's not a stereotype. It is actually, it's the idealized version of what a consumer should look like. And so again, many of the ads you would see in fashion magazines actually stem from this time. The major themes that you'll see in advertising are glamour, romance, now much more explicitly, sensuality, which is about, I mean, there is sexuality as well, but it's also sensuality, which is about how people feel, and about literally appealing to the senses. There is what we call black magic, which is the way in which products can help you cast a spell over someone else, can help you control other people's desires, and then a lot of focus on self-transformation. So the product will transform you in almost magical ways. So let's look at some of these ads. Okay, you'll now see we start off with that table. We're almost filling it out. I'm filling it out kind of step by step. And I hope as we're doing that, it doesn't just appear as this big jumble of words. Okay, what you should be able to do is look at that table and you should be able to make sense of it. Make sense of it historically as we move from one stage to the next, and then within each stage, trying to figure out what is different from what appears before and after. Exciting things happen when it's evening in Paris. Glamour, romance, ideal types. Okay, I said less fear. They presume the fear. They presume you don't have to convince people that that they're being evaluated. That in fact, when they're in interpersonal relationships, that they're also being assessed in some way. Once you know that, well, here is how you can improve your chances. Actually, this is a good example of this perfect companions. What are they talking about? Are they talking just about the two of them, or are they also talking about the perfect companion is now the product as well, which is part of the relationship, which is part now of the relationship. Because you are the very air he breathes. Okay, now it's no longer, why is Betty so lonely? Let's listen in. Or how many kisses is a good night with? Right? That will be now seen as way too obvious. And now actually, rather than just playing upon fear, you want people to dream. You want people to dream about how they can be transformed without the worry, or without having anxiety and fear always being a part of it. It's actually now looking to the future, looking to our notion of self-transformation without that fear. Okay, whereas in the second period, there was a lot of people with grumpy looks on their faces. A lot of people who weren't very happy, right? Well, in this period, because what you're mostly seeing is the after. So actually what you're seeing is how the product has transformed people. Okay, this is an ad from during the war. Okay, there'll come a day, and the day it says there'll come a day when he'll come home again, and you better make sure your spoons are shiny when he comes home. Well, Woodbury Knight's Dream. Again, now it's ideal. These are not ordinary people. These are now, even though this is not a photograph in that sense. It's been done as a drawing. These are ideal types. It's romance, glamour, sexuality, and the product now comes to. And then again, the assumption is the reason that's going on. Right? The reason that's going on is because of the use of the product. It has transformed people. the top is cut off. It says, make sure that he, sorry, it says, body language, make sure he gets the message. I'm not quite sure what the message is supposed to be, but this is black magic. This is the power of allurement, the power of controlling other people. I mean, this is literally sending a message through. Actually, it's the underwear still, and you wouldn't believe this is. Hey, darling, you'll get undivided attention. Now, there's not much. Compare it to a Victoria's Secret ad from the contemporary period. In terms of how it's supposed to work and what it's saying is essentially the same thing. Except nowadays you don't need to make that explicit. You don't need to make it explicit. You now presume that people actually know that when they see a Victoria's Secret ad, they see a glamour model with underwear on, that you can make the leap as to what the use of that product will do for yourself. Okay, just in case we're unclear, this is what it will help you do. Even though it says flirt, 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 and they're talking with that old devil budget. So these are, will help with price, but obviously other things are going on as well. And actually the underwear is still talking. Here's another one from, okay, ever wonder what your panties say behind your back? Right, and on the left side is sloppy, bunched up, and on the right side it's smooth. Okay, this can't get that self-transformation any clearer. Okay, dreams. Ever dream you were dancing on a star? And again, the product can help you. The product can transform you into that world. So let's go through some of these relatively quickly. There's a mirror ad. What's presented is what you could look like. You're looking at yourself, what you could look like, transformed by the product. Well, now this is, I mean, much of this we can now get into. This wouldn't look out of place in a modern magazine right now. Although in this period we're still not quite so far away. Sometimes it's still, okay, are you rushed? What does it say? Are you ever excited, angry, rushed? That's when most deodorants fail, but New Mum cream keeps working. Okay, but we have some of this now. This is, do you live a busy life? You go from, you have to look after the kids, you go to work, etc. Well, here's the deodorant that's going to look after you during all that time. Just in case you thought diet drinks or diets diet foods were relatively recent, this actually is back in the 1940s. How slender you were in the glow of the fire. Would he think so now? They're not actually being too, they actually call it Slenderella. I mean, the closest we come to this in the modern, like this kind of direct appeal will be in cigarette advertising. When you think about Virginia Slims, the Virginia Slims, which are targeted at women, and what they're saying is, the Virginia Slims, smoke Virginia Slims, and you'll stay skinny, you'll stay slim, and that's actually the explicit appeal that's made in a lot of cigarette advertising to women. But here it's for clothes. So this is interesting. This actually is from 1946, and this actually wouldn't look out of place in the pages of Vogue today. And if you want one example of the movement inside, the movement to the interiors of people, The movement inside. This actually is a really good ad for that. This is text-made. So again, it's about sensuality. It's about how smooth the product is. Terylene. And how it will feel, how it will make you feel good. Okay, it will make you feel good. Coke is now not just about upper-class people, it's also about ordinary young people. And in fact, it's an indication. It's an indication of how admired you are. That's one way. How do you know this, that she's getting all these invitations of people wanting to give her a Coke? All these, we presume, male hands with Coke in them. And it's an indication, again, of a direct relationship between people and products. Okay, let me move on. So actually, if I had more time, those are the second and third period. They're the most interesting periods to look at. They're the most interesting periods to look at because, as I said, they're periods of transition, and we can see the influences of them right up until the present time, as we can see actually the influence of the first period as well. So let's go to the last one. The last stage is the stage of lifestyle. This lasts from about the 1970s to the 1990s. When I say last, remember, these things never go away. They're introduced, they remain there, and there's lots of examples of market segmentation. In this period, the text now becomes cryptic and sloganistic. The text is like a key to the imagery. The text doesn't so much explain it, it's like a key to it. It's almost like a puzzle. Images now emphasize settings for goods and people. The setting, the scene now is crucial for locating people and products within a symbolic field. And in fact, in many of these ads, there is no notion that somehow the product will transform you. What it is now is that when you see these scenes, these are the kinds of people who are in this scene, well, they're the same kinds of people that actually that use this product. And in fact, the product comes to define the scene. The product won't transform you. The product is simply part of the scene. There's a lot of focus on activity, whether it's group activity or individual activity, but there's a lot of group activity now. Remember, this is about market segmentation, the period of market segmentation. You can belong to, this is how you get your membership into this group. And again, it's not so much about, this is a subtle thing it's not so much about using the product. It's not even like if you use the product, you will be transformed into this. It is that the product is just there in this situation. The product becomes part of the scene. So it doesn't cause the scene, it doesn't transform it. It simply becomes part of that, becomes part of the scene. Let's go quickly. The elements in ads. Products are connected with activity. They're connected with personal activity. They're also connected with the settings. And the themes in ads in this period, the themes are leisure, health, and groups and friendships. That's what's introduced. Let me give you, we have to dash through some of this stuff right now. Here's a Coke ad now in this period. And now it's no longer about interpersonal relationships. It's no longer about status. This is now everyday people. Everyday activities. Going to the beach, well, it involves Coke. Or dinners. This is for Harvey's Bristol Cream. Okay, there's no indication that those two people wouldn't like each other if it wasn't for Harvey's Bristol Cream. It's just there's now part of that setting. It is now it's the kind of this is the kind of product that is in those settings where you have these sophisticated dinners, personal dinners. Okay, the text, the longer the cigarette, the smoother the smoke. I'm not quite sure if they're talking about the cigarette or something else. Again, the connection is, it's the setting as well. It's this beautiful, fresh setting. And it carries on with cigarette ads right to the present time. When they present cigarette ads in these pristine settings and fresh and glacial, etc. Right? When you have a product, the basic aim is to kill you. You've got to distract people away from that. You've got to actually distract people away from this notion that smoking is connected with cancer. How do you do that? Well, you do it by connecting, by putting cigarettes in settings which are healthy, which are fresh, which are natural. Okay, and that's been going on for a long time. This is for craft. I don't know actually what the first one says, but again, this is a perfect, what we call a lifestyle ad. Okay, it's not that using a product is going to transform you into it. It is that this is the kind of lifestyle where kids go and families go out on bicycle rides on a Sunday morning, and then craft and jam and picnics are part of that. They're just part of that lifestyle. Like this one. This is for Dubonnet. Okay, this is a subtle thing I want to make. This is, okay, it doesn't say if you use this product, you will transform into these people. Because that's not what the ad is saying. The ad is not saying that. The ad is saying that, in fact, settings like this, the settings like this have as part of them the use of this product. The product doesn't define it. There's not as though if the product wasn't there, then those people would not be having the time that they're having. But that the product comes, in one sense, to take on the relationships that are around it. Remember, this is also the period of television advertising, and in fact, when this is in the 1980s, and there actually is a TV commercial that looks exactly like this. Right, which is lots of different activities going on, and the product is just at the center of it. The product is at the center of it. This actually makes it more explicit. If it doesn't fit in my Chevy S10, it doesn't fit in my life. Or here, Salem Spirit. Again, group activity going on. Again, it's not, and I said for cigarettes, it's no accident. You present people you show people having a good time, athletic time. How could this possibly be connected to illness? Well, that's all you need. All you need is that little bit of doubt that's put in people's minds about whether cigarette smoking is bad for you. Again, group activity, anything can happen. I'm not too sure what that means, but again, the text is it's kind of a puzzle. What's it mean? Right, anything can happen. It's kind of ambiguous. As has been pointed out, there's like 5 people and not 6 people there, so who knows what else is going on there. Okay, Camaro, it's not for little old ladies. Okay, so the Camaro is set in a youthful college. That's what the background means, right? It's a college setting, so it means young people. But it's not directed at young people. This actually is directed at that lady on the right-hand side who is not a typical college-age student. And they say Camaro is not for little old ladies. So that's actually how the Camaro actually represents something else, a different kind of lifestyle. Okay, this one is. I don't know what this one is. It's kind of, we actually used this in a book that we did, and I phoned up the person, the company, and I just wanted to get permission to use it. And I said, so what's going on? And he said, the person I spoke to said, I really don't know. The person who came up with it was my partner, and I think what he did was just took every single one of his fantasies that he had, and he put them, sunken bathtub, being served by 2 women, a French maid on the one hand, someone with whips and on the other, and you just put the product in the middle of it, and that's the lifestyle. That's the lifestyle that's represented here. Okay, now I want to be. So that's stage 4. Stage 4. Now again, I want to be clear. As we've laid them out in stages, but there are the stages for the sake of illustration only. The stages in terms of, okay, here's what's introduced, this new, here are some dominant themes. And the way I want you to think about it is like this. Okay, this is the top part of that model. Okay, when utility is introduced, it's introduced in that first period, and it remains part of the advertising mix. Similarly, when product symbols are introduced in 1920, they're introduced then, but they become part of the mix. Similarly with personalization. We never stop having this kind of direct personal relationship with products where products will transform us. And same with lifestyle. So at the present time, once they're introduced, ad forms do not disappear. They become concentrated as a kind of mode of presentation for particular goods and for particular audiences. The mirror ad, the ads from the personalization ads, are good for cosmetics. You open up Vogue or Glamour and you'll see almost nothing but mirror ads. Rational ads are good for technology. If you're looking at a magazine where there's lots of technology, open up a computer magazine where they're trying to sell you, and there'll be lots of text and trying to talk in that rational way. Lifestyle ads are good for alcohol. Lifestyle ads are good for cigarettes. So none of these things go away. Let me give you an example. So in the contemporary period, some goods are for display and social judgment. Some goods are about okay, here am I consuming this, watch me, and then make judgments about me based on that. Some goods are for personal self-transformation. Some goods, well, okay, I'm going to use this and I'm going to transform myself. I'm going to change my complexion. I'm going to change whatever, something about me. Some goods will identify you as part of a particular type of group, as a particular kind of lifestyle. And some ads, some goods, just do the job and are cheap. You have all of those four things existing in the present marketplace. Now, you can also, one way, I want you to be really clear what those four different stages are. And sometimes the same product can be presented in different ways. So let me give you an example. And we're going to look at Coke, how Coke is presented differently I don't have an example from the first period for Coke. But this is stage 2, right? This is Coke equals status. In stage 3, this is the stage of personalization, direct and personal relationship with Coke connected with personal admiration. So this is now, you have a direct relationship with Coke, and it's about romance, and it's about it's about that transformation. And then in stage 4, this is lifestyle, Coke equals a leisure lifestyle. So in each of those different places, in each of those different stages, you can see how Coke can be positioned differently. It can be positioned in terms of its social meaning. It can be positioned as part of a personal relationship, and it can be positioned as part of a lifestyle. And all those so there's nothing about a product itself that says there's only one way to present a product. And in fact, sometimes in the same, I got a feeling if we looked at Coke ads in the contemporary period, you can most probably find Coke ads with the stress all those different things. I'm pretty sure they won't stress. The only one I think that the Coke wouldn't stress will be the first one, will be the rational use of it, because I'm not quite sure how you would present. Essentially it's water, which is about 90% of Coke, and then you've got 2 cupfuls of sugar, and then you've got some coloring. It's tough to know how that can be presented in a rational way. Yeah. Sorry, is Coke having? Yeah, they have right. Well, but that way they have to add something to it. So, but again, that's to do with they're competing also with water at that same time. Okay, just give me. No, we've got past time. Okay, we'll carry this on next time.